This is Marilyn Plumlee here at the 2011 KOTESOL International Conference, and I'm speaking with Rob Dickey, who's one of our invited speakers this year.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we're second day of the conference. Rob Dickey is one of the, I would say, leading lights of KOTESOL. And I would like to first maybe just have you talk about the fact that, well, you're what I call kind of the counselor extraordinaire of KOTESOL, because you have a lot of institutional memory, and you've stayed involved right now. You're a former president of KOTESOL.
That's right.
That was,
as are you.
Yes, that's right. Good morning, Mr. President. But at this point, you don't hold any elective position, but no matter what year it is, if you're in office or out of office, Rob is there, standing behind KOTESOL. So I'd just like to ask, what is it that motivates you to stay so involved, and to stay so involved with KOTESOL?
Well, I think that KOTESOL has offered myself and lots of other people opportunities here in Korea that we wouldn't otherwise have. It's the only organization that is largely driven by the expat community, the teaching organization. And it also has strong social aspects. So when you're first coming to Korea and you're looking for a way to contribute to society, this is a place where you can immediately jump in. There's no Korean language issues. And once you get in and you develop this camaraderie with people that you're sweating nights with, it's hard to just walk away. You develop that rapport. And and so even if I don't have a real job in KOTESOL, something comes up and I say, oh, we should do that, or I'd like to do that, and they're always looking for help.
Right. Well, that's kind of the segue to my next question. What would, for people who are watching this and may not have been involved in KOTESOL other than perhaps attending a conference, what does KOTESOL have to offer them? Can you be a little specific about what kinds of things, what kind of positions, what kinds of skills KOTESOL is looking for?
Well, of course, there's the pure teaching or pure academic side. If you're really interested in developing the core professional competences in teaching, there's lots of areas for that, like KTT, where you go out and do presentations, the journals, the publications, where you can either write yourself or you can help edit and polish other people's work. So there's the more traditional academic side. But then any organization has lots of infrastructure needs. Whether it being the person who helps arrange for the coffee and cookies at a monthly chapter meeting, or actually coordinating bringing speakers in for those chapter meetings, or coordinating a conference like this where 1,500 people spend a weekend, and we've got 7, 8, 9 international speakers from abroad invited in, and another 20 or 30 internationals who come in on their own to present, and another 20 or 30 who come in just to see. There's so many tasks to do.
Right.
And very often one person has to do 2 or 3 because we haven't yet found someone willing to step up and say, I'll do that.
Right.
So we're always looking for people who want to find a way to contribute to, an organization that they think is helpful.
Right. And then yesterday we had this new event here at KOTESOL, the PechaKucha, which I had never heard of. Could you talk a little bit? Where does this come from? Where do the words come from? Are these real words?
They're real words. Yeah. A few months ago, before I did my first one, I looked it up. And I don't remember exactly now because, as we get older, our brains don't retain everything anymore. But as I recall, it's from Japan. It's Japanese. It was created by engineers and architects who wanted to show very briefly, very quickly, very succinctly their ideas. Something where a picture could say 1,000 words. And so 20 pictures would be 20,000 words, but we could do it in less than 7 minutes.
So pecha is like picture in Japanese?
I wouldn't speculate, but as I remember, it had something to do with succinctness, or but I don't remember exactly the meaning. But it's from Japan.
Yeah. Okay, though that was a very interesting one. I think that's going to be online. I hope people will be able to catch your survey of KOTESOL history, 19 years of KOTESOL history, in 20 slides and 20 seconds per slide for a total of 400 minutes. 400 seconds.
400 seconds. 6 minutes and 40 seconds. And it's hours to set up for a very, very short moment of...
But besides enjoying the presentations, I think this is a nice idea that we can apply maybe to our classes when we have speaking presentations.
I'm actually thinking that in the next couple of weeks I want to do a PechaKucha lecture. where instead of spending 50 minutes with my students where I'm doing a lot of talking time about something where I'm supposed to teach, not a conversation class, that maybe I can boil it down, distill it into that 6 minutes, 40 seconds, and then give them 40 minutes to cogitate, to think about it, maybe talk to their friends, and ask questions. But boiling down that lecture time into the most concise bits.
Right.
But it takes so much time to prepare.
But that's, anyway, it's good. I think it's very good training for all of us, for those of us who are professionals and teachers, and then for the students also to condense whatever it is they want to say into a small amount of time. Let's move on. Yesterday, I'm sorry to say I missed your presentation. I was in another one. You gave a talk on training teachers of English to very young learners. I wouldn't have imagined that Rob Dickey's involved in teaching very young learners. What's your involvement, and what did you have to say yesterday?
Well, actually, there's 3 answers to that. First of all, I didn't actually do a talk. Jake Kimball and I, together, led a workshop where we figured that we would talk for about 12 minutes out of the total 45 minutes. The rest of the time was group discussions where we basically would throw up a PowerPoint and talk for 2-3 minutes about here's some issues related to one field in teaching young learners. Now, what do you think? What's the thing in here that excites you in your group? Talk about it. So that people walked away with shared knowledge, not with passed out knowledge.
So what could you give us an idea, a couple of those main issues in teaching very young learners, and how do you define very young learners? What age bracket?
For me, I break down the young learners bracket from 2 through 20, basically, 18 months even for some people in Korea. We've got kids that young studying English. And then I said, okay, so teens are easy. We'll just chop that off. Everybody 13 and older is a teen. The traditional young learners bit has been something like 6 to 13 or 6 to 15. I said, well, okay, we've got the critical period hypothesis game to play with, and a lot of people say that's around 13. Young learners, let's talk about very young learners being from ages 2 to 10. Because around age 10 in Korea is when kids start doing English classes in elementary school.
Right.
Formal instruction. So this is going to be the other. It looks like it's going to go down. But right now, so people who are pre-formal instruction in state schools is what I'm calling very young learners.
Okay, so what were a couple of the issues? Because I want to move on to some other topics.
Well, one of them, of course, is always attention span. And classroom management is related to that. You know, how can you get kids to focus, to stay attuned with what the teacher wants to do? And one of the possibilities is just to do micro lessons, 2-minute, 3-minute, 4-minute lessons, move on to the next one, something like that.
I'm wondering, why do I have to study English? 영어 어려워요, English is so difficult. Does that come up for you in the very young learners age group?
If you're teaching English and it's a classroom setting, the children are going to object because actually they don't want to be in class. But if you can frame it in such a way that they enjoy the room setting and with the teacher and with the classmates, and it doesn't feel as much like teaching, then you're ahead. Because kids in Korea, they just study so much.
Right.
So one of the objectives is to get out of that classroom mode, even though you're in a classroom.
And make it more playful, right.
Sure.
Now, upcoming today, you've got your main invited talk, which is, I'm going to read here from my notes, Beyond Words, Reflecting on Classes and the State of Korean ELT. So let's wrap up our talk maybe with that.
Okay.
What are the main points you're going to touch on today?
Well, once again, today I'm trying to talk less because I'm known as a talker.
Yes,
and so the title is a hint when it says Beyond Words. It's reflection. And how do we reflect? Well, one of our tools in the 21st century is recording our classes and using video. So what I'm going to do is to take all my outtakes, all my NG films from my classes, and toss them up there and say, okay, what do you think I was thinking or not thinking? How do you react to what in this 2-minute clip did you like? What in this 2-minute clip did you not like? So I'm basically, going to show all my warts, or at least a fair collection of them, and invite people to be their own judge. I'm basically trying to encourage people to do this in their own classes. So I thought the best way to do it was to stick my own neck out.
So you record yourself every class?
No, not every class and not every week, but a few classes regularly, I stick a camera in, because one of the things is after a couple of days, students don't notice the camera anymore. Especially if it's not staffed. You put it in the corner of a room, it's not ideal technology, but you start capturing live things. The other side is that more and more schools are doing this. They're recording teachers for evaluation purposes.
Right.
And if we're doing it, we are controlling the process, and we can control some of the results. But if we just let an administrator walk in once a month with a camera, or a team of 3 evaluators with their clipboards, then we're behind. You know, we're letting other people decide whether we're good teachers, and we're not getting the kind of input that we want to help us be better teachers.
Okay, and then just maybe one absolute final question. What would you say are the main issues or the directions that English language teaching is going in Korea, that particularly the native English speakers or expatriate teachers, however you'd like to call them, should be informing themselves? Maybe movements, directions in Korean education, or issues internationally abroad that we ought to be bringing into our teaching here in Korea?
Well, part of it is that change is inevitable, and first of all, we need to realize it for ourselves, and we need to help our students prepare for it. It's really easy to teach what we know, to teach how we were taught, or you know, what kind of preparation are we doing for our learners for their future, for the 21st century as it will be, not as we've seen in the past decade. That might be technology, but it might be lots of other things. As individual teachers in Korea, I'm not sure, because the game rules keep changing. I mean, the government itself changes its own rules. 10 years ago, I told people that I hoped when I retired there would be few native speakers in Korea, that the Korean teachers would be able to basically take control, that they would have native speaker competence. Singapore is very near that now. I still believe that could happen, but the clock is ticking. And there are more and more Korean teachers who have outstanding English skills. And more native English speaking teachers need to be preparing themselves for the day when they are limited to very minor roles in Korean classrooms and teacher preparation, and there's not as much expatriate teacher, Korean learner interactions.
Okay, well, I think that's another issue we could take off on and maybe have another 30-minute discussion. But I think we'll wrap it up here. This has been a conversation with Rob Dickey at the 2011 KOTESOL International Conference. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you.